Yeah, we're here representing all day Kenyan hip hop to the world. A lot of people have been asking me where can we check out Icon Radio. If you're online, you can always go to Icon Radio KE. Have a listen, have a shout out. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you're feeling blessed. Tell us if you're having a happy day. Because today we're not stopping. We're rolling on and on and on and on. So a lot of stuff has been happening down in Kenya. We've been hearing, the other day there was the hey, yo mandamano. Hey, guys were all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, the government was getting shook, like shook and shooked about everything that's going on. One thing that I personally feel like these mandamas I feel they are important in a way. They're important because one thing that we need for sure, we need changes right now. There's a lot that has happened in the past. A lot of guys say, "Oh, you know what? How come these guys are always on the streets? They're doing this, they're doing that." Let me ask you a question. If you went through what you went through in life and your grandparents went through the same thing, your great grandparents went through the same thing, what do you think the young guys are going to be? They're going to just sit down and be like, it's cool, we're going to go through the same thing? No, they're going to go and they're fighting for their rights. Actually, in the hip hop movement, the hip hop movement is known where people come together and fight for their rights. So I personally feel that it's time for Kenya. Kenya needs that change. It needs these old school politicians also to listen and hear what is being said out there. Though I don't even know half the time if they're listening, if they even care half of the time. But we need change in our country. When we look at Africa, when we look at East Africa, the interesting thing is that a lot of times what people say is that Kenya is the mover. Among like a lot of places in Africa, Kenya is the glue. It is the glue that Africa needs, because Kenyans, there's no way they go back and just sit back and be like, yeah, I'm being hit hard and harder and harder, and it's okay, I'm going to keep on taking. They're going to be like, no, enough is enough. So, Mr. Politician out there, if you're listening to whatever's being said, I need you to listen very carefully, and I need you to take an ear. Listen to what the people are saying, because their rights are so important for progress. Their rights are so important for moving forward. So it's time for change. It's time for blessings. So, you know what, Kenya, it's time for change and everything. So, one thing that's been grabbing my mind a lot when I think about music in Kenya and how we're moving. One thing I want to find out. Tell me what you think, but has Kenyan hip hop, not American hip hop, not Chinese hip hop, not Colombian hip hop, Kenyan hip hop. Has Kenyan hip hop lost his way? If we look at from the beginning when we started this show, The Vault, like the original Vault. In the Vault there was yours truly, there was the beat maker, there was DJ Hitch who was here, there was Myra, as Jirong you say, Queen Bogie, you know. There was, of course, Jirongi himself. And when we started the show called The Vote, it was about uplifting the Kenyan music scene and uplifting Kenyan artists, having that bridge between the younger artists and the older artists in Kenya, because there's been this issue for a long time, especially in the hip hop movement among younger artists versus older artists. Older artists feel like, you know what, they were the era of the golden hip hop of Kenya. Now, I'm giving you like what was been said out there. You can give your own opinion about it, but this is how it was, and this is how the Volt even came together. It was about the older guys felt like the younger guys weren't really hearing what they had to say, and they felt they had the ear to the industry. They knew how the game was played, how they actually made their money in the industry, and they felt like because the younger guys are coming up, they're not listening at all to them. They felt like they should listen to them and hear what they're saying. The younger guys on the other side, one of the guys who was on our station was representing the side of the youth was my boy Oshea Gambino. Yes, Oshea was here, was a presenter here also on the show. An MC in his own right, dropping albums. He has a record that was out called Dem Wayemba. Yeah. So he was saying that in his view that some of the older artists feel that they have the glue to hip hop. They feel that they know, yet they don't know. For example, there's always been this thing that, hip hop in Kenya is Eastlands. If you ain't from Eastlands, then you ain't telling nobody nothing at all. Because we look at some of the all-time greats of hip hop in Kenya, where they came from, and they came from, we know about guys like Keshaka, Uko Flani, Mau Mau, that's Dandora. We have guys from Heirs of East Lee. We have guys from that. But funny enough, if I would give you the history of actually a lot of these artists that I knew back in the days, it did not come. They were not from the Eastlands. Some of them came from uptown, the uptown side, the other side, and it crossed over the Eastland. But a lot of the young artists feel like they have a voice, they have an understanding of how the music needs to go, how the genre needs to move in right now. So that is actually how the vote came together, because we were about at Icon Radio about bridging the gap between the younger guys and the older guys who are coming up. So in my ear, well, someone was whispering to me. That's Myra, Queen Bogie. She said, "You know what, Beatmaker, you've been in the game a long time, and you have a lot of records that people even haven't heard." And that's how the idea of the vote came up. Within the vote, we came up with something called the Vote Cipher, where artists come together. I make original beats. We lay it down. Artists get to spit their best rap verses. When people say a cipher, it's like you're freestyling, showing your skills. And at that time, there's a lot of people have come through this show, both from Kenya, both from abroad, both from other areas of East Africa, like Tanzania. We have guys who have come. Even we have Ugandans who have clicked in. So it's been a blessing. But the thing is, we are one of the people that really believe in uplifting talent over here on Icon Radio. It doesn't matter if you're known or you're not known. We're going to give you a voice. We're going to give you an ear. We're going to hear you out. So it's like the show has grown. It's been a blessing. But the question is, has the industry in Kenya evolved? Is it escalating to where it needs to be? So I want to just say, if we look at hip hop right now, where it is. First of all, when we talk about hip hop, a lot of guys get it wrong. We're not talking about rap music. We're talking about the culture. The culture of hip hop is what we call, like the fivefold. So they are the graffiti artists, they are the producers, they are the R&B artists, they are even managers who are in there. But the last of the chain in hip hop is actually the rapper. Believe it or not, the graffiti artist was there even before the rapper. The DJ who started that chain was there before the rapper. But the rapper's like the baby. It's like the adopted in baby that was brought in, but it's the one that had the biggest voice, because a lot of times people listen to how these guys were talking. They were talking their own stories, And the question is, like when you ask young people and you ask them, and you tell them, like, do you feel like hip hop has lost its way in Kenya? A lot of guys may have different kinds of views about this based on where you come from, based on where you are. My point of view is also about this. The DJ has played a big part, a massive part, in elevating Kenyan hip hop in Kenya. Actually, people don't realize, but they are actually, right now in Kenya, there are actually more DJs than there are actually producers, both on the male and the female side, But the thing is this, like, has it helped evolve, or are we just playing music to play music? So if you go to young guys, they'll tell you that creativity is actually booming. There are more subgenres of music than ever before, that have happened. For example, there came up trap, there was drill, there's alternative hip hop, Afrofusion, There's so many different genres that are coming up. Even like nowadays, you find Amapiano has checked in. Afrobeats, there's some rapping going on there, So they feel that is great. Where back in the days there were very few genres in their views that were really making things happen. And the thing is, if you talk to the older guys who have been in the music scene, when they look at the fusion and the emergence of hip hop, they look at it from the point of view of that was the golden era. That's when everything was happening in hip hop. That's when you can actually say, "Hey, I'm a hip hopper," and people will be like, "I'm a rapper," and people are like, "Yeah, we feel you." Actually, if you look at Kenya, for example, in the 90s, and we look at Kenya like in 2025, there is a big change. First of all, Kenya in the 90s, there were a lot more shows going on around Nairobi. Like you can go to any place in town. You can go to street corners. You can go to Seamas. You can go to, especially like Florida F2 on the weekend. You'd always find there was a show going down. You go to Barclays Plaza. There were so many venues that events used to happen. If you went downtown, you went to Lithuli, there were events that were happening over there. But now what's going on? Like like a bit of crickets. Yeah, that's my sound for crickets, because not a lot is going on right now. Because why? Everyone that you meet is like they're doing their own concerts on their phone in their bedrooms. Actually, we should call it bedroom music. We shouldn't call it even hip hop music anymore. Now we call it bedroom music, because everyone is just streaming from their bedroom, performing, and they feel like, you know what, I have a listening audience around the world of 10 million listening to me. So why should I bother going and doing a live show out there? But the older artists, that's how they created their skills. That's how they made themselves tight. That's how they made themselves good. But I don't deny, with the new emergence of artists and Kenyan hip hop coming up, they have more of a global influence, from Nairobi to Tokyo to the UK to America. It's all over the place. But does that necessarily mean that our market is growing? Do you feel that our market is growing through our music? Like, for example, right now, if we went online, and I know this discussion came up today before I came on the show. I was trying to explain some young youth out there that hip hop in Kenya is not just Nairobi. Nairobi is one of the small babies of hip hop. Like when you go to Nyeri, you'll find rap. But now our music has become ethnic. You find guys like Kobole, concept the king of Kikuyu rap, doing their thing. You find a lot of female rappers out there like Shazzy B, like Tulia, like Saisa. You find a lot of people out there dropping gems out there. It's a different kind of market. You go to Nakuru, you find people like Verum Kaliwao, by the way, dropping out rec. It's wider. Like the music is much wider than Nairobi. I understand that people believe that, for you to make it, you have to come to Nairobi. It's the same thing when I lived abroad. People would have that thing in their head that if you wanted to make it in music, you'd have to go record in London. That was good for a minute, because they would be like, oh yeah, this is where all the Godfathers, OGs recorded their albums. So if you want to make it, you know what? That is a bunch of rubbish. And I said it. The beat maker said it live on air. That's a bunch of crap. You don't have to go to certain places for you to make yourself grow. Music is global. In Kenya, where we are right now, there are so many great artists who are coming up and doing their things, and we have other subgenres of music coming out. You have the urban tone artists who are doing their thing. You also have the guys, we're doing gengeton, guys like Bogi Genje, out there, who are still doing their thing. There's other artists out there who are doing, there's a vast number of artists that we have in Kenya. But the question is, how come, and I'm saying this loudly, how come that most of the music that goes out there, we don't hear it? Yes, I say it again, how come we don't hear it? If you talk to the masses out there, they say the reason why they don't hear a lot of this new upcoming music, you know who they blame? Like, let me tilt my head to the other side. Let me tilt it left. Let me tilt it right. Let me tilt it up. Let me tilt it down. And this is a hard thing to say. But a lot of people, they say why our music is not growing. They blame it on the media houses. They blame it on the houses from the past to the present, who didn't want to elevate Kenyan music, you know. And I know that is a huge discussion and it's been there for years. And there are things that I can agree with. So, because me being an artist who came up very young in age when I came up, and you're trying to get your music on the radio, it was impossible to get your music on radio, you know. Um, some of the stations that existed would just be like, they were still focusing on foreign artists. They were not focusing on Kenyan artists, you know. So the hip hop movement was drastically suffering, you know, because that's why there's so many artists who are on the streets performing, because that's the only place like they could really get an audience. There was no social media. Social media did not exist. I mean, you have to understand that Yahoo came up around, was it 99 or 2000? And that was a good thing, but it wasn't massive the way social media is right now. It took a couple of years for things to grow. And so at the end of the day, a lot of artists used to do that. Nowadays, the game has changed. The game has elevated in a different way, where what you can do out there is more like, more better, more specific than what you can do in the past. But I feel at the end of the day, both sides of the coin have something that's wonderful about them, you know? Like, at the end of the day, why is it, and I keep on being asked this, why is it that there's other places in East Africa that have taken over? Like Tanzania, like Uganda. Like, those two names always come up when you talk about East Africa. And they don't really talk about Rwanda. They don't talk about Burundi much, you know. But they talk about Tanzania and Uganda. Interesting enough, if you know the history about Kenyan music and Kenyan hip-hop, a lot of those artists used to come and record it here in Nairobi, you know. And some of the producers that actually built that sound to make those artists great left Kenya and are in those countries now. That is what happened, you know, because they created better opportunities. It's kind of like sports. You know, I see this all the time in sports where there's a time, and I asked this, Kenya used to always, like, you know, like with steeplechase or long distance, they always used to win, you know. It was either them or Ethiopia. Now the game has changed. The rest of the world is catching up with Kenya. But what happened is sometimes in the Olympics, you watch someone winning a gold medal, you're happy, oh, Kenya has won. Then you realize that person has a Kenyan name, but is not Kenyan. They changed their citizenship, you know. Same thing happens with our producers. Some producers felt like they were given better opportunities somewhere else, so they decided, let me go abroad, let me go to other East African countries, let me build my brand over there. And so I feel that is one of the emergence why even Kenyan hip-hop has failed. If we have to streamline down to only a few artists who are doing Kenyan hip-hop in Kenya, that means we're already failing. We're already failing, because anytime you go and you check out music in Kenya, they're always like, respect the OG. Now, I got to ask myself one question. Why do I need to respect the OG? What is there that I really need to respect? Is it because he made money? What is it that he has done apart from rapping and doing those other things they need to respect? Now, that's the thing that we need to understand. The artists who are coming up from the past, the present, need to build up their brands so they grow. If there's one thing I will say about Calligraph that he has done is, yes, he has tried to invest in other artists, putting them on different tracks that he has done in different genres. You know, another thing that he has done is he's invested in himself, you know, to build his brand. That's a big problem with a lot of artists right now, is that they make money in Kenyan hip-hop. They can even be endorsed, and within 2 months that money is over. They don't know what to do with it. You know, they're not investing a lot of times in the genre of music in Kenya, and that's why hip-hop is not growing. I feel that's the reason why music, not just hip-hop in Tanzania, but music generally in Tanzania has grown, is because they're investing in each other. They go on each other's social media pages and they uplift each other. You know, that's what they're doing. They're actually investing in each other. Same thing in Uganda. I've been in Uganda. I've worked with the top artists over there. I worked with producers in Uganda when I was in Kampala. You know, I've been around. I see the way they operate. There's also that thing of supporting each other. Though I'll be honest, like Uganda, like they believe in the artists, but they also have a lot of beef. When they decide to go to war, it's war. Like, those guys don't play around, you know. But they're investing now in Kenya. I feel that we're probably, like, amongst these nations, we're probably one of the most talented. The problem with Kenya is that we don't invest in each other. We don't build each other up. We're actually fighting against each other. If I hear someone has brought out a record today, the first thing that I do is go online and dismiss the record and say, you know what, this record must be whack. How do you know it's whack? Have you listened to it? So we need to come together. We need to support each other. We need to uplift each other. The reason why even the Volt has grown on radio is because there are people out there who have been out there and believe in what we're doing. We need to have that cross-board all over Kenya, and it would be great. I've seen artists from other places. Like, I've even seen artists from who are doing hip-hop in Kambaland, in Macha. And they're dropping crazy rhymes, They're dropping things. But how many of us are going out there to support them? So the question is Kenya hip-hop improving? Is it dying? Is it growing wings? Is it falling apart? I think one of the biggest battles that we face right now is the old generation versus the new generation. Now, if you look at me, you can probably see I'm not a young dude. I was young at one point, and times have changed. So there's a lot of younger artists coming up. But one thing that I do believe is I do believe in endorsing and appreciating the young talent, putting them in the studio and working with them, because that's the only way we're going to move. My time was awesome. It was great. It was wonderful. But the thing is, we cannot ignore, and I'm telling you, guys who are in the time that I was in music, also doing my thing, like, let us embrace these young guys who are coming up and what they are doing. Because trust me, they have an ear. They have an ear that we may not have. They have an understanding of things that we don't have. They may have an area of social media that we don't understand and how to put things together. So all these wars that people are fighting, who's the greatest, who's not the greatest, it to me is a waste of time. I know there's a big argument that came up, who's the greatest in Kenya, which crew was the greatest. Was it Kalamashaka, or was it Uko Flani, or was it K-South Flavor? I feel K-Shaka, because I was around when they were dropping their things like Fanya Mambo, Tafsirihi. They were doing all those records. I was actually around in the studio around the time they were putting things together with the producer at that time, Ted Josiah. I had passed through, and I know there was Ted Josiah was there. There was David Muredi, there was Mike Rabah, and of course there was Ambrose Akwabi Digi. It was there, But when they came with Tafsiri, it was a different flavor of music, because that's the time Kenya was transitioning from the English rapping a lot to, the Sheng rapping, which was great, which was awesome. Like, everyone, at that time, everyone supported what Kalamashaka did. And Kalamashaka also, I feel like, gave birth to other ways of rapping that was done in Kenya. For example, if we look at Uko Flani, who came later on, were doing their thing. Uko Flani, I feel, elevated it another level that K-Shaka wasn't doing. And that's how music is supposed to be. The next person who comes along is supposed to elevate it a bit higher than the person who was there last. If there's only one person who can elevate it, then we have a problem in Kenya. That's why I'm saying it cannot only be Calligraph who's trying to elevate music in Kenya. Not that I have an issue with him. I'm just feeling, you know what, Kenya? Man, put on your big boy panties, put on your big boy drawers and get out there and put out the music. Stop complaining about one thing or another. Who's the greatest, who's not the greatest. Let us come together. So you know what? We're taking a break now here on The Volt. Of course, you're here with the beat maker, not the beat taker. Check us out on Icon Radio KE. You can check us out on YouTube. You can have a listen. Give us an ear. Tell us what you think. How do you think that Kenyan hip-hop has lost its way? I really want to hear what you think.